Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the Pro Play Games OnePiece Webcam case tournament that they had this past weekend. It was 136 players with 8 rounds of Swiss to this top 16 that we see here today, and they did have a top 16 cut that they did play out, and so that's pretty exciting there too. So real quick before we start, if you guys do appreciate these videos, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does take quite a bit of time to find these deck lists, to compile them, and put them all in one spot, and I'd really appreciate those clicks. So anyways, going into this top 16, we do have 6 Eustass kids, 4 Trafalgar Laws, with one of them taking the event, 3 purple Kaidos, 2 red Luffys, and 1 red Zoro as well. So still pretty diverse for what we're seeing, though no blue in this top cut, which mostly is what I saw in the set 1 of the Japanese meta. People were playing the deck, and I do appreciate PPG releasing the leader breakdown here as well. So people were playing blue, but it's obviously the less than a quarter of the event were playing blue, which is really interesting there. And not even like it's the 5th most popular. It's just 14 blue Doflamingos, and then there were 4 of the blue purple Crocs, 1 blue Croc, and then 2 of the blue purple Kaidos as well. So people not really on it as much, though I would have not have been too surprised with 1 Dofi making it in, because I know people play it. It's just not as popular as the rest of the leaders here. So that's, again, thank you PPG for releasing this leader breakdown. That is really, really interesting, and we'll see if any more blue kind of pops up in the next little bit. But again, I think red, green, purple are just on a different level consistency wise. So anyways, we're going to go over the top placing deck list for each leader, so starting off with Justin Dizazzo's first place red, green Law. Starting off, we have Justin Dizazzo's first place Trafalgar Law, and this is definitely a leader that has been kind of, waxing and waning a lot in my mind, where it's a very, very tricky deck to play consistently. And I can't imagine playing this deck for pretty much the 12 hours that were this tournament the other day, because it took a long, long time to get through all the rounds and stuff. But man, when it works, it really, really does work. So this is definitely kind of the leader too that has probably the most space of variation. There's a lot of cards you can use, and there's a lot of different ratios you can choose for it, and everything else. So for Justin's list, we decided that I think the Koizuki and Julian Bonnie's, having both of these 1-drops make the deck a lot more kind of consistent for you. You do have to be careful that you honestly don't have a lot of each ratio. You kind of have to get a little bit lucky, kind of have to know how many are left in your deck, because Koizuki only finds Wano Country, which means itself. It can find Otama, can find, I believe, the Cat Viper, and that is it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So there's Koizuki doesn't find too much, but it can help you there. Julian Bonnie helps you find any of your supernovas, so that means that Capone Gange Beige, the killer, and then also the Zoro and the Luffy in Trafalgar Law. So it does have a little bit more for the Bonnie, and as well as itself. Nami lets you find any of your Straw Hats, so the Luffy, the Zoro, the Robin, the single Robin, the Brooks, and the Tony Chopper. And so there is a lot of kind of consistency there. And in this build too, there's no kind of big 8-drop top end. It is mostly just your little guys to try to get your Trafalgar Law ability on as soon as possible, and I do like the idea of that, and it looked like it worked out pretty well for them. So obviously the idea is that you're able to just easily get to 5 on the board with a lot of these cheap cards, and you're able to recycle them back to back, and going a little bit aggressive too with 4 Zoros and 3 Luffys too. I've seen a lot of builds where you don't run as much rush stuff, but it's really tempting, right? Because you can always just rush, and then you can bounce it back to your hand. Or if you bounce something back to your hand, you can play something with rush as well. And a pretty good mix between the red and green too, because the 5-drop Law does not care about the color of the next card you play, but the Law leader does. You do have to play something of a different color. So if you want to play a Zoro, you have to bounce something back green. If you want to play Trafalgar Law, you have to bounce something red back, and that's important there. But in general, Trafalgar Law, I think, is in a really good spot in general. Probably the worst matchup is probably Kaido for it, which is probably going to be present for a while. And as we see in the set 2, as we get more and more decks that are able to interact with the board, this deck is probably going to be trailing off in the future, but right now I think it's in a good spot. If you like playing a big brain deck and you like having a lot of interaction and a lot of plays that have potential in your turn, that's good, but also means there's a lot of potential for making the wrong plays, and which why Justin being able to pilot this to first place is such a big accomplishment. So congrats to Justin. There is the list. And next up, we have Isaac Diaz, second place Kaido list here. And looking like some more unique ratios than I've seen from more Kaidos in the past. Running a lot of the 2Ks, so the Orochis here as a 2K, the Sasaki's here, the X-Drake. No Uta, but that doesn't really matter too much. We do have, 12 of these 2Ks here. 2 Who's Who's, which I think is a decision point. Not everyone plays the Who's Who, and I think it's because they're not playing the 7-drop King at all, which is quite surprising. 7-drop King, I think, would be definitely a really good matchup for a good card for the Trafalgar Law, which, obviously they lost to Trafalgar Law in the finals, so but it's obviously another card that can break up your hand and be, in a bad spot. And I do like Who's Who's because it can bump out of your life and not only be another swing, but get rid of a card that's 3 costs or less. So the Who's Who's here, I think, is probably to make up for the lack of the 7-drop King, but I think it's still good. Black Maria 2 is just a blocker, another one, which is fine because we are running just the 2-drop. We're not playing the 2-drop Black Maria, so we're playing the 4-drop instead. Has unblocked on times -1. This gains +1 power during this turn, so it can become a 6K if you need it to, which is nice. If your opponent's just saying a lot of 5K attacks, you can do this, make it a 6K and let it live. We also have Queen, of course. I don't think that's too crazy there. And then the Babanuki, which we've been seeing a lot of these 5-cost 7K cards, and I think there's some good reason for it. They're somewhat hard to remove right now, especially like red has like the 6K or less, so this doesn't get hit by that very easily. There are ways to get rid of it like late game, but like mid game, if you drop this exactly on turn 5, it's still a really good powerhouse for what it is. And I think a lot of decks kind of have to respect these kind of moving forward. Top end 4 Kings, 3 Kaidos of each. The 10-drop is, I still don't like the 10-drop at 3. I've seen people run at 4 and find success, which is crazy to me. It's sometimes just so bricky in your hand, you never want to play it, but more power to you. You got second place with it, so there you go. Blast Breath, Thunder, Pogwa, I think are understood, and then Bracho Bomber at a 1 of, just for like a kind of good removal if you need to. It's kind of rough to, like, this is really only good on like turn 6, like when you have 6 or 7 Dawn, because the ramp doesn't really mean anything late game because you're always going to have it anyways. Like if you're at 8 Dawn at the start of your turn, then like it doesn't mean anything because that extra Dawn's not going to do too much for you. But the removal for something 6 or less, I think is nice for something like green, but most of the green stuff are 7 or 8 that you really want to remove. So I don't know. I like the card in general and like the idea of it, but in practice, I think 1 is just a perfectly fine number for it. So that is the list. Congrats again to Isaac for their second place finish there. In general, I think Kaido is the strongest deck if it hits everything on its curve. And if you're going to have a tournament of people playing Kaido like we saw this weekend, one person's going to see their curve almost every time, and they're going to do well with it. And that was Isaac. So congrats to Isaac there. Next up, we have our top 4. This is Kevin Zhao's Eustass Kid. And Kid is definitely in a really good spot, not only for this meta, but we see it still doing well in Asia for set 2. So again, if you guys want to get into this game, I say Eustass Kid is probably the best leader to kind of start you into it. The leader is still, like, it's just the best leader effect in the game in my mind. It is an end game condition. It's early game it does nothing, but like mid game you can use it twice to get some removal if you have to really get some stuff off the board on your opponent's side. Late game it's just like a ticking clock that your opponent has to like respect your leader or just have a bunch of blockers to get around it, and it's just very, very strong. So other than that, like the list itself is generally pretty understood for a lot of these cards, like Momo, Beige, Bonnie, Killer, Cat Viper, Apu, Izo, like all this like top row pretty much are staples for the deck. Killer is a bit of a decision point. People run usually at 2 at max. And then top end, you have some choices running 4 of the 8-drop Kid is the choice for Kevin here. And it is such an impressive card. A lot of people think it's the best card in the game, and I don't blame them for that. It's very strong for what it does. And if you're able to get this out with a blocker, your opponent's going to have a really, really hard time getting around it. And it's very, very obnoxious. So I do see, like, just as a like floodgate and kind of life preventer there, it's really hard to interact with this card. We also have Basil Hawkins, which is great for board removal. And you're noticing that this deck is running no event cards whatsoever. So a lot of people like playing the Punk Gibsons and like the Paradise Waterfalls for that defensive, but this is none of that. It has only like a bunch of 2K counters. It's saying, you know what? Paradise Waterfall doesn't mean as much as just dropping a 2k counter for free. I'd rather not have to use Dawn and have it up at the end of my turn. So we're just running only these counters and having a really good go for it. So, which includes Beppo, which people don't normally run as much, but it is a nice 2k counter for us. And we also have the Raizo, which is another kind of decision card, but it is a Wano country, which means that your Kozuki finds it a little bit easier. And when attacking, you have 2 or more rested characters draw a card, so it's very easy to get this procced off as well. So I like this list a lot. It looks like it has a lot of strength with it, and being able to, again, get all these counters without having to use Dawn with it, because we're not, using a lot of event cards, I think is an interesting twist of it. So again, congrats to Kevin on their top 4 finish. And next up we have Gavin's Gonzalez's starter deck Luffy. And if you guys have been following my channel, I've been really, really on Luffy lately. I've been really enjoying it. And I know that there's the question is what's better, Zoro or Luffy? And in general, I think Zoro is still the better aggressive leader, and we'll look at the leader, the list that got top 16. But I think with the release of the Film Red promo pack, there is a lot of just the Trafalgar Law and the Beppo, in combination with the Nico Robin, you are able to play kind of the mid-range game and be very value-based in this leader, which I really like. So I think it has a little bit of an edge for it. I think by and large, Zoro and Luffy are probably interchangeable. You have to play a little bit different with each leader, but they're both very, very good. And but it's really cool to see 2 Luffys get that top 16, including this one. And again, I'm not going to say anything. I don't have any assumption that they've been seeing my list that I've been topping with, but there are some similarities that I like to see. So again, Beppo I think is very good for what it is. It's just, you can run 2 of it. It's just like another copy of Nico Robin. Obviously it's a 2k instead of a 4k, which kind of stings, but is a 2k counter as well, so that's strong. And I do like running this in there. Trafalgar Law is great of a card. It's another copy of Otama, but you don't feel as bad playing it because it's a 4-drop. It's a 5k, so it can do damage next turn. And the minus 2k really, really helps get rid of cards. So you puts cards in range of your Nico Robins and your Jet Pistols too. So if they have a big 8k, you can play Trafalgar Law, Jet Pistol, and great. It gets removed, and that's why I also like Luffy, because then you can use one of those Dawns on something and not feel very bad about it. So all of that seems really strong to me, and I really like it. Some differences and some cards that I haven't seen as much for these builds are, one is the promo Monkey D. Luffy, but I do like the idea of it. It is a 2k counter too, so normally I like running the Sanjis for the same idea, because it's a 2k that lets me that I could play outright if I need to, but this Luffy's nice. Down times 2 your turn, this character gains plus 2k power, so it's the same thing essentially as the Sanji. So this becomes a 7k for no good business after turn 2, which is good. Or after you play it, you can just put it on, and with your Luffy effect, you can just put it on easy. There's also the Ben Beckman. And as a 7-drop with 9k, this is essentially living on the board against everything that isn't blue. Which is great, and it's a 1k combo or counter if you need it to, but it's a very, very strong card. If you have the extra Dawn for it, just drop it. And along with Shanks, both these are just, even though they're expensive, late game, we normally have enough pressure. If we play the game right, we normally have a couple cards on board already, so we can afford to just have our entire turn playing the Beckman or the Shanks, and then your opponent has another thing that they have to kind of get rid of as well. Last card that I don't necessarily play is the Gum Gum Red Hawk. So counter one of your leaders gains, our character gets plus 4k during the battle. Then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 4k power or less. And then also trigger give up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters minus 1k during the turn. So I do like this card, but I don't know how I feel about running it at 3. I'd probably run it at 2 personally. It is a great counter for what it is. It not only saves something, but it can save 2 attacks if your opponent doesn't set up their Dawn early. And if you really don't I'd say the Trafalgar Law matchup, this is really great against Trafalgar Law. So that is something for that as well. But it's okay. It's okay removal for what it is. It just thinks that you can't give stuff minus power as well to boost up the range they can hit this with, but I think it's still a strong card. And then again, Jet Pistol is probably one of the best cards in the game. Not gonna lie, it has a great trigger effect. It's very easy removal, and when you can use an Otama or Trafalgar Law to double up with this and get some more things this is the thing that can remove the biggest things on the board with the combinations. I've done Trafalgar Law, Otama, Jet Pistol, and removed a Kaido with it before, and it felt amazing. So Anyways, this is Gavin's list. I really do like Starry Deck Luffy. I'm happy he got that top 8 finish. So congrats to Gavin there. And to wrap it off, we do have Julian's top 16 Zoro. And Zoro was played more than Luffy, but we did have more Luffys in this top 16, which is really interesting there. I know a lot of people do like the Zoro list. They think it's very aggressive and they like what it does. And I do agree. Like, it is very aggressive all the time, and it seems really strong. So and this list is a little bit different than a lot of lists I have been seeing. So going into it, we do see, like, for example, they are running the Sunny Coons, which we do see Zoro run in set 2 when they have more like the 1-drop rush kind of archetype with the new cards for that too. But Sunny's still okay in this deck. It's for 1, it's a 3K. It's a straw hat too as well. So you do get to search it with Nami if you need to, which is cool. And it's just very strong for kind of what it is. So for 1 extra Dawn, makes a 5K to do damage is great. And even like worst case, you play at turn 1 and they have like a Jewelry Bonnie that they play. You can swing into things. It's good for removal, and I like the idea of it. The Monkey D. Luffy super rare, we don't see this as much, but it is still kind of nice for what it is. You can't be KO'd by strike attribute characters, which sometimes comes up. It's kind of a weird protection, but it sometimes works. But the activate main once per turn to give this character up to 2 of your rested Dawn is quite nice too. So if you play something and then you can put them on Luffy. So it's like being able to recycle your Dawn is kind of what Luffy's known for in this game. And so being able to do that and just be a 5K without having to invest anything else into it is great. And then 6K with a leader effect is cool. Brooks is nice because it does, like, you don't mind playing this as well. And really the big thing about Zoro is that you don't mind playing like some of your smaller guys because you can buff them up to 5K very easy as well. So Sanji is nice as well. You don't see Sanji, I'd say, in many Luffy builds because Sanji, the rush is nice, but like being able to bump it again the next turn with Zoro for free if it lives is cool there. 4 Nico Robins, 4 of the Zoro rush cards, super good. Monkey D. Luffy, 3 Shanks, and then the event cards, we're running 3 of the Diablo Jumbo, which is quite aggressive. Normally I'd kind of tap out at 2, but 3 is a lot. So they do not want to care about blockers during this match. 4 Gum Gum Red Hawks as well, which is an interesting pick as there. A lot of people are running the 1 cost counter, so like the Frankie beam, so radical beam. So being able to run this at 2 is kind of, I would say, expensive for Dawn keeping up, but it does prevent you from I don't know. I would not expect my opponent to have a 4K counter to get rid of, to defend their stuff on their turn. So that's something there. And if I played like my stuff wrong, if I sequence it wrong where I play my cards and then attack, I could get in trouble with this Red Hawk as well. And then Jet Pistol, because again, it's a very, very good card. So anyways, that is the end of the top 16. Congrats to Julian there for their Zoro. And this is the entire event. So again, thank you so much for PPG for running the event, as well as letting me get these deck lists and stuff. If you guys appreciate this video, please again hit that like and subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. And that will be it for me. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.